Not every game is guaranteed to make your ride to the end easy. Some of them will try to tempt and sabotage you with offers of boosts or seemingly innocuous side quests. Not all of these offers can be trusted though. I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are 10 horror game offers you must refuse. 10. Until Dawn, shooting your crush. By nature, Until Dawn is packed full of high-stakes choices and offers that you can barely refuse. In some ways, this game has been talked to death by now, but when it has such a great selection of moments, then you can hardly complain. One particularly memorable moment occurs when Chris and Ashley find themselves facing off across a table, with Chris given the choice to use the gun they've been provided with to shoot himself or his crush. It may seem tempting, but if you are to take up the mystery killer on this offer, then you could be in for some pushback in the long term. Luckily for both of them, the gun is filled with blanks, so should you choose to shoot Ashley, then really both of you survive. For now. Understandably though, Ashley is going to be pissed off by this decision. Later on, as Chris runs from a Wendigo, banging on the door of the nearest building to be let into relative safety, in an act of revenge for his attempt to kill her, Ashley can simply refuse to let him in, leaving Chris to have his head ripped clean off his body. So yeah, you can survive blanks in a handgun, but later on you're faced with a much worse fate. 9. The Suffering, being the bad guy. It's oh so tempting sometimes to make your digital self a horrible, morally devoid badass. It's not real life, nobody's actually going to get hurt, and it means that you can blast your way through certain games with blinding speed and power. Who needs morals and emotional hang-ups getting in your way when you just want to survive? Well, if you accept the open offer to embrace your criminal side whilst playing as an incarcerated fella in The Suffering, you may change the game's path for good and get a slightly darker ending. We learn that our player character Talk has been imprisoned in the first place for murdering his family, but he protests his innocence. There are 3 different endings to the game, and only one of them sees it confirmed that Talk didn't kill his family. If you allow yourself to be tempted to the dark side whilst playing, the game ends up revealing either that Talk really did brutally murder his wife and kids, or that he accidentally killed his wife and then his kids died by murder-suicide. So yeah, probably best to avoid that outcome. 8. The Sinking City, aiding the gods. There are 3 options to choose from to finish the Sinking City. One to flee, one to commit suicide, and one to allow a ritual to go forth, causing the end of the world. You play as Charles Winfield Reed, a private investigator brought to Oakmont not because of his superior sleuthing skills, but because he's been chosen as the one to complete a ritual bringing back the old gods, which will in turn end the world as we know it, offering the player the choice to allow the annihilation of mankind just for the sake of a momentary illusion of power and importance may seem stupid, but you just know that some people out there went for it straight away. 7. Alone in the Dark 2008, letting your mate become possessed. Atari's 5th installment to the Alone in the Dark franchise sees you play as Edward Carnby, a paranormal investigator. After a wild ride that sees Carnby discover his own identity, meet a nice girl called Sarah, and kill a dangerous occultist, he ends up at the portal to the afterlife. Putting together 2 parts of a very old, very sacred stone, Carnby is told that the universe's balance is now restored, but that he also now has to face Satan. As Lucifer comes through this portal, he ends up going into Carnby's lady friend. Thus, at this point, Carnby is offered the ability to save himself from possession by just letting Lucifer stay in her. If he rejects this offer of bodily freedom, then he needs to shoot her and take Lucifer into his own body as a vessel, which, you know, any gentleman would do. However, if you accept things as they are and let Sarah be the vessel, then you're welcoming the most pathetic game ending possible. The now inhabited Sarah will ask him,
"How does it feel to be so alone?"
To which he'll respond with the same level of despair you expect when your takeaway arrives but they've sent the wrong thing.
"I'm used to it."
As if this losing situation wasn't bad enough, your player character has now gone and dunked on himself, delivering the most pathetic ending imaginable. 6. Prey, choosing violence. Throughout Prey, you may not realise at the time how important each little decision is. If you don't know what it's all adding up to, you may think little of your choice to go with the typical action man style of play and slaughter every typhon you meet. Only when you get to the end, however, do you realise that the offer of shooting the place up and shooting yourself up with alien DNA was definitely not an offer you should have taken. Each neuromod you accept and each kill you carry out is weighed against you, as it's revealed in the end that this has all been a simulation, designed to see if you, a typhon, are capable of empathy and making humane choices. If you've exploited the world for all the shoot-em-up fun it's worth, then you're destined for the bad ending, in which you fail the empathy test and are simply destroyed. If you've managed to be deemed ethical enough to live, you're made an offer you cannot refuse, to go and save mankind by bringing peace between humanity and the typhon. There is literally no downside to this offer, and you have to be a real psycho to reject it and kill the very man who proposed it to you. But sure enough, I'm sure some people go for that. 5. Man of Medan, grabbing a weapon. Until Dawn's spiritual sibling Man of Medan had a lot to live up to when it was released in 2019. Continuing with the signature choice-driven style, there's a lot of potential for messing up throughout this journey. One offer that the game makes you is pretty much always guaranteed to end badly, and that is the offer of grabbing a weapon. At several points throughout the game, you're prompted to grab hold of a knife or gun. Generally, in most other games, if you're offered a deadly weapon, it's because it's going to help you in an upcoming fight, or make the game and its combat easier in some way. That is not the case here. Because of the nature of the ship our protagonists find themselves trapped on, their perception of reality can rarely be trusted. As soon as the player gets their hands on a weapon and are faced with a perceived enemy, if you don't know the truth behind the hallucinations, then the chances are you're going to accidentally kill some of your own party. It can't be helped if we didn't know any better at the time, but it was still a pretty sly offer in retrospect. 4. Amori, just giving up on playing. The bad ending to the RPG horror Amori is achieved by simply giving up on the fight. Following a young lad named Sunny and his troubled friend group, the game blends real life with the dream world as Sunny and his nighttime counterpart Amori battle it out over his brain space. After one final battle, should the player lose the fight, they're given the game over screen. Here they receive the offer to just give up, to be happy with defeat at Amori's hands and be done with the game. Unsurprisingly, accepting this offer doesn't let you off scot-free. After the game over screen, the player is returned to the game, where they venture next door to reunite with their weirdly pastel-coloured friends. The world is suddenly all cute and sparkly, and a big benevolent cat beckons you to the top of the screen. You walk your character up to the cat, only to find yourself on a hospital roof. Amori is now occupying Sunny's body and is unable to live with the consequences of his past actions, and so he chooses to jump off the hospital roof. What an incredibly depressing ending, and it could have all been avoided if the player had refused the offer to give up and just given the fight another go. 3. The Walking Dead, abandoning a friend. In Season 2 of the Walking Dead game, Kenny and Clem make it to a community called Wellington. Wellington is at capacity and not accepting new people, but they do make the offer to allow just Clem and baby AJ in, condemning Kenny to a wintry, lone trip to God knows where. Now, this may be a little controversial to say, but if you accept Wellington's offer and just leave your old friend Kenny out there in the cold, you are absolutely heartless. In a world like that, leaving someone alone is pretty much condemning them to death, especially in the middle of a harsh winter when they have nothing else left to live for. Sure, the game puts the offer on the table and you can accept it and have no immediately bad consequences, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. Lee always said we should stick together, and in his honor, you better make the right decision. 2. Resident Evil 7, saving your companion over your wife. Towards the end of Resident Evil 7, you're offered the chance to either save your wife, Mia, or the woman who's helped you on your journey thus far, Zoe. I'm going to go ahead and say that being offered the chance to sacrifice your wife to save a woman who you barely know is one you should absolutely refuse, and that the consequences to making that choice only solidify this. Presented with only one extra life-saving serum, if you choose to give that serum to Zoe, you're getting the ball rolling on the bad ending. Instead of going off with your wife and continuing the journey as any normal person would, you hop on the boat with Zoe and before you know it, she's dead. Going down this road, not only does Zoe die, but you actually end up having to kill your own wife too. Had you just been a normal person and chosen to give the serum to Mia, both characters would have survived. And if you were that eager to see more of Zoe after you chose your wife over her, then you could always just go and play as her savior in the End of Zoe DLC. 1. Saw the video game, finding out the truth. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that doing a deal with Jigsaw isn't a smart idea. However, if you're in a situation where Jigsaw's making you an offer, chances are you're in no position to refuse and get away scot-free. Throughout 2009's Saw game, you play as former detective David Tapp, working your way through an asylum and freeing Jigsaw's victims. The catch is that every victim's there because they're somehow linked to Tapp, and the process really hammers home the damaging effect his obsession with the killer has on the people around him. At the end of the game, Tapp's offered the chance to uncover the truth about Jigsaw for good. Very tempting, I know, but it comes at a cost. If you take him up on this offer for the truth, Tapp chases down and beats the living daylights out of someone whom he believes to be a cloaked Jigsaw, only to find out that it's his late partner's wife whom Jigsaw has forced to participate in his game. She runs away in terror only to trigger a shotgun trap, killing her the exact same way as her husband. This sends Tapp into a mental breakdown which eventually sees him institutionalized, still believing he's playing Jigsaw's game. And that brings us to the end of this list, but there are plenty more terrible offers out there, so let us know any more you would have included in the comments below. And remember to check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll probably see you over on the Horror Channel.